Hi guys, Mindstone here. Today we will be taking a look at the first of our new Kobolds and Catacombs decks. This is going to be the Quest Druid. So Quest came around in Ongoro, and now we have finally had a few support cards for it. It's still not as good as it could be. It's probably not going to be a very high tier deck once the meta settles down, but it can actually play out now. So I've taken it, I've brought it here to you, and I hope you'll enjoy it. So let's first go through the cards and talk about their roles in the deck. First up, we've got Barkskin. Barkskin's in the deck because it's a great defensive tool. It helps you trade because there's 3 health you can put onto a minion is very, very useful. Usually because your minions are going to have a lot of attack because of the quest. We're going to get at that when we talk about the quest. So you often don't have a lot of health, and because of that, you need the health instead. You need to get it somewhere from, and I thought Barkskin's pretty good for that because it's actually a lot of health you're getting for only 1 mana, and you also get the armor, which is super crucial against aggro decks. Okay, yeah. So there's that. You could play Earthen Scales in this slot too. It's sort of the same role, but I feel like this one does sort of minion trading better than Earthen Scales, and therefore I like it a little bit better. But I can see the argument for playing Earthen Scales because it's a lot more armor you're getting a lot of times. I think you're getting enough armor with this deck most of the time though, so I would probably prefer Barkskin. Okay, so next card up is the quest itself, Jungle Giants. So it reads that you have to play 5 minions and then you get Barnabas, which discounts your entire deck, well, all the minions in your deck to 0. So it's really what we're trying to build the deck around, even though it's actually a lot of problems completing this quest. So oftentimes you're not going to complete it before, let's say, turn 7, the fastest. That's like turn 7, and that's rare. You're not going to see turn 7 completions very often. Actually, I've had a lot of games where I'm just not completing the quest. I'm playing on turn 1, but I'm not completing it simply because it's very, very hard to complete. When you do complete it, the reward's pretty good, and actually Barnabas is like a pretty big part of that reward, just the aided body that he's giving you. But discounting everything is really nice too, because you've got a few tools in your deck that really becomes powerful when you discount them. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So the quest, you're playing a lot of 5 attack minions, of course. That's you're going to notice when going through the deck. We don't have a lot of minions with less than 5 attack because we simply want to trigger the quest as fast as possible. Even though that's really hard because sometimes we have to play spells and actually try to stay alive. But the minions are sort of there to get the quest going and then starting to pound the enemy down. Yeah. So next card up is Lesser Jasper Spellstone. This is one of the new cards introduced, and it's really, really powerful. So it starts dealing 2 damage to a minion. That's not significant, but it's not terrible. You are sometimes going to use it in the first stage just to kill a small annoying minion from an aggro deck. But if you can hold on to it and actually gain a few points of armor, you're going to have a very strong tool. It actually becomes 6 damage in its final form, which is really, really powerful. It's going to kill a lot of minions. So 1 mana, which is what it costs, will actually remove a fairly big amount of minions. So you can probably get a 5 mana minion for this if you're lucky. Yeah, so it's a really powerful card. You're playing a lot of cards that gain armor. I mentioned Barkskin before, and they really help to make this card a lot more powerful. So yeah, there's not much to say to it. It's just an anti-aggro tool, but just make sure. I think when you're playing this card, you have to make sure to use it, with and not be too greedy with it. You can't just hold on to it for the final form and expect it to kill something really big. Sometimes you just have to use it and kill something instead of just waiting. Because I feel like your late game you're going to win anyways. A lot of the time you often don't have to play for value. So you have to make sure to not get killed. That's what a lot of the games are about. So yeah, make sure to use that one. Then we've got Wild Growth. I feel like I don't think I've made a Druid deck in the last few years that haven't been aggro or have played Wild Growth. So either, well, it's just a Druid stable, right? because it helps you immensely much getting more mana every turn. So you play this on turn 2, then every turn from then you're going to have an extra mana crystal. That's amazing, not only for getting your big minions down earlier, but also just for general utility and being able to like squeeze more things into your curve. So it's super powerful, and I wouldn't even consider cutting it from any serious list. It's in Jade Druid, it's in Big Druid, it's in Quest Druid here. Yeah, and even one thing you might not know about it is that if you play it on turn 10, you're going to get a card draw instead of a mana crystal because it doesn't do anything. So it's sort of like a compensation for that. So if it's turn 8 or 9, you might want to consider holding on to it instead of just playing it, because it doesn't really do much at these turns, but instead you get a draw when you get to turn 10. So that might be worth it at times. Then we've got Wrath. This card is also in like every Druid deck because it's really good. 3 damage to minions, pretty significant for stopping aggro, so that's nice. And then the function that it has to draw a card and deal 1 damage instead of 3 damage is pretty useful, because sometimes a minion is going to have a lot of attack and only 1 health, and you don't really want to use hero power to kill it. And then you can use Wrath, that's nice, and you even draw a card while doing so. So it kind of helps you cycle through the deck, which is pretty important because you need to get these key pieces like pretty fast. Yeah, but the flexibility is really valuable. Then we've got Jade Blossom. This card's like, I think you're playing it as Wild Growth, which costs 1 more mana. You don't care at all about the Jade Golem it summons. This is not Jade Druid, so the Jade doesn't matter. It's there because why not? So yeah, more ramp, and it has all these upside set. Wild Growth also has, except that you don't draw a card with this one. If you play it on turn 10, you just get a Jade Golem. So it's not. I would say it's less powerful than Wild Growth, but it's still good enough to see inclusion in this deck. Then we've got King Mukla. This is actually a pretty funny card, I think, to play. So he's not that good if you play him from hand, which is like why he's not in a lot of decks. But what he's good at is that if you manage to get him out of your deck without actually playing him, we'll get to the tools. We have tools for that in the deck. We'll get to those later. He's really powerful because 5/5 is actually quite a lot of stats. And you can play him from hand, and he's fairly cheap, so that's nice. I feel like you don't really want to get into, well, the heavier minions that do the same thing as he does, because these can't be recruited in the same way. They can't be pulled out of your deck the same way. I feel like Mukla's just there to get pulled out of your deck and do something. You can play him on turn 3, and your opponent's going to have to pay some mana to get those bananas played, which is fairly good for you also, but be watchful that he may have a downside, because he gives your opponent a lot of options to control the state of their minions. But yeah, he's there to complete the quest. That's his main purpose. Yeah. Then we've got Cursed Disciple. This is really the card that's made the deck in the new expansion. So what it does is that once you summon it, you get a trigger. You proc a quest once, right? So you get 1 out of 5. But when it dies, you actually trigger it once again. This is super significant because it's 1 card and it makes 2 triggers. That's been very hard to do previously. You had some Menagerie Warden that could do it if you copied a big beast, but still, it wasn't actually easy to do. You could do this completely without interacting with the opponent, and it still packs a fair body for the cost. So it is sometimes going to be removed very easily because it only has 1 health on both forms, but it's still very powerful and it just helps you get the quest through. Make sure to note, if you're being rushed down, you might not want to actually play this guy because it's not really doing a lot against like a lot of small minions. It's really good at killing bigger things. So yeah, sometimes it's just a too slow card to be played, but it's really good when you're not terribly behind and you can sort of work towards your quest. Now we've got Oaken Summons. This card is also from the new expansion, and it's probably also the reason why the deck was is a lot better than previously. So it's summoning a 4-cost minion. So we have 3, or less of course, but we have 3 minions in the deck that can actually be summoned by this card, which are Mukla, Cursed Disciple, and Cursed Disciple. We have 2 Cursed Disciples, obviously. So you might think, I'm playing 2 copies of this Oaken Summons, and I'm only playing 3 things that can be summoned. if I draw 2 of those minions, the Oaken Summons, the last one, will not really do anything. But for one, it doesn't really matter, because if you've been drawing all of your 4 or less cost minions, you're going to have completed your quest with those. So at that point, as soon as you've completed your quest, it's a totally different game. So it's not that bad that it's a dead draw at that point. But it actually isn't a dead draw, because if you play Barnabas, it'll discount your entire deck to 0, and then you suddenly have a lot of minions that cost 4 or less. So at that point, it becomes recruit a minion and gain excuse me, and gain 6 armor, which is really powerful. This is my go-to turn 4 play. If I get to it, I'm going to do this pretty much every time, because it's so powerful, gaining a lot of armor while simultaneously getting something on the board. And again, if you can recruit Mukla with this, you're going to be super happy, because Mukla's so big. And of course, Cursed Disciple's fine too. That just helps you more towards the quest, where Mukla's for tempo. Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, next card is Swipe. This card is, well, in there because you struggle to beat aggro, and Swipe's good for killing aggro, and it's good for, well, killing people. So, yeah, when they're almost dead, you can just finish them off with Swipe. Yeah. So, it's sort of a hybrid between Mage, burn damage, and ball clear, which is nice. And it's, yeah, I wouldn't ever consider taking Swipe out of any serious deck, Druid deck either, maybe except for aggro. Yeah. So, not much to say to that. Be wary, maybe, that it's not going to clear big boards. So, if the boards have a lot of health, you're not really going to be able to swipe them away, because it only does 1 damage to the other minions. It does not target. That can be significant against aggro, but against mid-range, say, it might not be significant enough, so don't rely too much on it. Then we've got Guild Recruiter. This card's also from the new expansion, and it's sort of doing the same thing as Oaken Summons. It's a little bit weaker, I think, because you don't really care too much about the 2/4 body, and, well, it's sure decent, but it can just sometimes not be enough. But it's, again, has the same function as Oaken Summons. Pull out one of these early minions. If you complete the quest, you'll pull any minion, so that's good. Yeah, I'm going to want to play this on 5. Obviously, it's my only 5-cost card. And, yeah, it's pretty powerful still, pulling something like Mukla or Cursed Disciple. Yeah. Then we've got Dark Arakoa. It's in there because it's a big, fat taunt. We don't have Cthulhu even. It's a 5/7 for 6, and we don't have, well, we have few taunts, but we want as many as we can, really, because it's going to help us against aggro. I would probably not swap it, because it also helps towards the quest. If you play it on turn 6, that's sometimes pretty relevant, actually. But I think it's one of these cards that are not at the core of the deck, but it's fairly good, so I don't think I can see any replacements coming anytime soon. Yeah. Then we've got Spreading Plague. Spreading Plague is in there because we don't like aggro, and Spreading Plague is amazing against aggro. So, against anything that floods the board, this is just a game-winning play. I think I played a few games earlier today, and I hit 6 minions on Hunter while I had an empty board. That just won the game out of nowhere. Against Secret Mage, I played it, got 4 of these. It's so much health, and it's actually pursuitable clear, because the wall you're building with it is also going to deal damage to your opponent's minions, and that's going to chunk them down pretty efficiently. So the problem about it is that if they're playing like tall boards, you're going to have a hard time dealing with that. You don't really have any heart removal, this doesn't help you, and counterspells are not nice. So there might be some struggles, but I feel like the card should definitely be justifiable. If there is less aggro in the meta, I would consider cutting one of them, because it's complete garbage against control. You're never going to get anything off it then. So yeah, I'm playing 2 copies right now, and I think 1 copy is probably mandatory, because you're going to run into aggro at sometimes, and it's just game winning against aggro. But if you're seeing a lot of control, I would consider cutting one of those for another big minion or something. Yeah. Then we've got Corridor Creeper, which is also from the new set. This card is like a pretty experimental one. I haven't really had that much time to test it, but I've been testing a little bit with it, and I feel like it's pretty good because it easily gets discounted. It's going to be discounted like faster than you would think. And just playing it for 4 mana is pretty good actually. I wouldn't be unhappy with a 4 mana 5/5, but sadly there are no 4 mana 5/5s in standard right now without downsides. As far as I'm concerned, I might have missed one, but I don't think so. So Corridor Creeper, if you can get it discounted to 4, you're happy. If you can get it discounted further, you're very happy. And you can do that often if you just get it in your hand. Consider playing Spreading Plague while this is in your hand. But after that Spreading Plague is dead, this one's probably going to cost 0 most of the time. So that's pretty nice. Yeah, so I would even consider running 2 of them, but I only have one, and it's experimental, so I'm running 1 at the moment. But it could maybe replace Arakoa in the future. At least one of the Arakkoas. Then we're playing Malfurion the Pestilent. So he does one thing primarily, and that's keeping you alive. Going from 1 armor each turn to 3 armor each turn is pretty big. So it's a lot easier to keep yourself alive against aggro decks with this guy. And then something Scarabs and getting the armor just when you play him is really good too. And you actually have an option to get heart removal from the poisonous creatures, and you can do damage every turn with the attacking hero power. So I feel like he's just very versatile, and I probably wouldn't want to cut him because, well, he's worth it against aggro, and against control he's super valuable because you get more presence from your hero power. So yeah, that's pretty good. Then we're playing Graceful Guardian. Grizzled, I don't know, actually, I'm a little bit unsure how to pronounce that. But it is a 3/5, which is really, really bad trade mana. It's got Toad, of course. But what it does is it pulls 2 of your 4 lower cost minions. So I think the card is amazingly cool, that's one thing. But I think it's actually fairly good, because if you pull, let's say you haven't drawn your 4 and 3 cost minions, Mukla and Curse Disciple, and you play this guy, he's actually going to pull these out of your deck and do a lot that way. So he's sort of like the back end of the quest proccing, sort of, if you haven't procced it when you draw him, he'll just make sure you proc it. So you're getting there. And if you do play him after the quest, which is like what he's primarily for, that's a little bit more fun actually, because then he recruits 2 minions from your deck. You don't care which ones, because they're all big. So yeah, that's just powerful, and of course he's a respectable body in himself. I experimented with running the Soth at a point, and I think he's synergizing pretty well with that, but I don't feel like you have enough death rattles to really justify it. Then we've got the Lich King. Lich King is in there because he's big, and he gets you more cards. And more cards are nice, because having everything cost 0 makes you able to run out of cards pretty fast. So yeah, not much to say about it. He's just powerful. I feel like the cards are really, really strong. He gives you some of these non-linear answers that can kind of help you to deal with decks that don't just play the linear game plan. Yeah, but amazingly strong. He's like one of your endgame bombs. Then we've got a single ultimate infestation. So I don't feel like playing 2 ultimate infestations in this deck is good, because you're going to draw out of your you're going to draw everything very fast. And I think that's a little not so nice actually. So I'm only running 1. But if you get Barnabas down and play this one, you're going to get to draw a lot of cards, and most of these are going to cost 0, because, well, minions cost 0 after playing Barnabas. So that means you can play a lot of things in 1 turn. So I like that aspect, and then it's pretty powerful in general. So I feel like playing 1 copy is good, but 2 is a little bit too much. Then we're also playing Rosh, which is like the final big drop of this, the deck. So it's good if you recruit it after playing Barnabas. It's good for actually triggering Barnabas, because it's going to trigger 1 proc itself, and it's going to pull another minion, which is most likely also going to do that. So it's fairly good in that respect. It's a 10/10, so it hits for a lot. It has sort of that same thing over it as Lich King does, with just being big. Yeah, there's not really much to say about that. So, that's pretty much all for the deck. I feel like there's a little bit of variation to the way you build the top end of it, whether you want to go for a Death Rattle package, or for just a big package, or maybe even a Dragon package. I could imagine that. But right now, I think we'll get into a game. Okay, so we are back with an actual game with that quest druid. So, what will we be up against? We will be up against Hunter. Hunter seems like a pretty interesting matchup in some ways, because you're going to be on your toes all the time to try to survive. And that's actually kind of hard against a new spell Hunter. But it can be done, and it's actually quite interesting to do. So we'll see how that goes. Jungle Giants is, of course, as always, in the opening hand because it's a quest. And we've got Malfurion already, which might be alright, considering that it's very, very strong at stopping aggro. But except for that, our hand's pretty weak. Now we got Wild Growth, which matters a ton. It does make it a lot easier to survive the onslaught from the Hunter. We're hoping for traditional Hunter. Minion Hunter is a lot easier to stop than Spell Hunter, because Spreading Plague's a lot stronger against it. We can only hope it's not Cat Trick. But you would play either Wandering Monsters or Cat Trick here. If it's Cat Trick, we're very, very screwed. Well, not really much to say about it. It's just very bad. 4 damage this turn, and the next few turns is going to be terrible. We're just going to swipe it. We're going to swipe it right away. Luckily, it wasn't another cat trip, so we might be alright. Cat trick. Ooh, this guy's having a good curve. However, he hit Leok, which is lovely for us. Now we're starting to get into our curve. And we're going to be pulling Mukla, which is super powerful for combating his early aggression. So actually the deck musters a lot of tempo in just doing this. The 2-4 and the 5-5 on what is essentially turn 4 is pretty powerful. And we haven't lost all of our health yet, so that's also pretty nice. But the swipe top deck did help us a lot, and the Wild Growth on turn 2 was really good too. So we're going to see Flanking Strike here. We're just going to keep playing minions to just keep blocking him out. I think we're going to be going for Malfurion next turn, almost whatever happens. There's not that many exceptions, I think. Especially if he's not really filling minions onto the board. Our main goal is simply going to be killing every last minion. Because then we can easily outlast him. Maybe not easily, but right now we're having a very good game against him. It's going to be very hard for him to punch through that, and our hero power is going to be super powerful. And Grizzled Guardian might just complete the quest almost by itself if it pulls double Curse Disciple. But that's going to be a Shiraj, so now we're getting some problems. Slight problems. We might be able to taunt up enough to actually stop it. And with a little bit of luck, him killing Grizzled Guardian will mean that we get double Curse Disciple, which is going to be enough to actually just kill your Shiraj. He seems very eager to kill it. And if these death rattles go off, we actually do get our quest simultaneously, which is not that bad. Because, well, we can do lots of things with the quest, but the best thing we can do is probably play Barnabas and Oaken Summons into anything. It seems as if he was not really prepared for this, because he's definitely not going to like what's going to happen now. So all these wolves, of course they're scary, but they're not really a priority for us. Okay, that's really terrible. So I had expected to pull something like Lich King or Shiraj, that would be amazing, or maybe into Arakoa, but Guild Recruiter will do, I guess. So he's going to Hunter's Mark that one. It's not terrible, but it's a little bit annoying. So he's running out of cards. Unless that's Rockdala, we might be alright here. Candle Shot's pretty scary though, just because we can kill those 5/1s without any trouble. going to take some damage. Right here I think we're healthy enough for it to not matter. I wonder if we can draw a card, if that's good enough. I think it might be. With drawing Oaken Summons, I'm pretty sure it's going to be. Especially because that will get us a lot of presence. And that should end the game. So yeah, that's approximately how it functions once you get to this point. The recruit is very powerful once you're out of cards. The only problem is when you run out of minions, really, because you do recruit them fairly fast. That's a little bit annoying. And now we're going to see a challenge from him. He's going to be pulling these beasts, which are actually fairly scary if he gets a strong one. So they can be scary.
The end has come.
Form of dragon.
So instead of focusing on not dying now, we're just gonna try to kill him as fast as we possibly can. Because the way we lose this is through him stabilizing with spells and hero powers. And I don't think that's possible if we just keep this tempo up. But still, we're going to be worried about it. There's the possibility to draw a bloatbat with poisonous, which could actually clear the board. It would be absolutely terrible if he did that. So well, let's hope he didn't. However, the way he moves his mouse could suggest that he is in possession of something like what is it called? Guess it doesn't matter. It definitely wasn't good enough to stop us. So that's how the deck works. We had a pretty good game this one. Even though he did pull your Shiraj and such, we managed to proc the quest fairly early. We managed to recruit these big things, and we kind of got it rolling. So that was really good. And again, yeah, it was pretty much there. He was never really threatening us, so that was pretty safe in some way. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay and the talk through of the deck, and that you might try this deck yourself. I know it's a little bit expensive. There's a lot of legendaries and epics in it, especially legendaries. But what you can do is you can cut a few of these legendaries. I don't feel like they're very important, and as long as you just play like big minions with more than 5 attack, I think you're going to be alright. What you can do with this deck, because of the very specific way the recruit works, is that you can actually, instead of playing Lich King and Shiraj and these high attack minions, you can actually play minions that cost more but have less attack than 5. Because your recruit mechanic is pretty efficient at actually triggering the quest, so that means you don't have to play that many of high attack minions. So you could play something like Sarah to get more cards. But that I will leave up to you guys to experiment with, and I will say thank you for watching.